You could click away right now. It would be easier, because the next 12 minutes will not flatter you. They will confront you. What you're about to hear are the paradoxes and silent cries of the rarest minds. If you stay, you may see yourself more clearly than ever before. But clarity is not always comfortable. This video may disturb you, not because it is dark, but because it is honest. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, dedicated his life to studying the depths of the human psyche. He discovered that beneath our everyday awareness lies the unconscious, a vast realm of archetypes, symbols, and hidden patterns that shape how we think, feel, and live. But Jung also observed that some rare minds seemed unable to remain at the surface. Their perception was naturally drawn downward, toward meaning, mystery, and possibility. Today we call them deep intuitives, INFJ, INTJ, INFP, and INTP in the modern MBTI system, and they live with a kind of double vision. One eye fixed on the world as it is, the other on the hidden currents of what could be. For them, nothing is ever just ordinary. Every event carries symbolic weight. Every encounter hints at deeper connection. Every silence conceals possibility. Yet this gift is also a burden, for to see into the unconscious is to feel the weight of truths most people would rather ignore. And this is where their struggles begin. The life of a deep intuitive is not defined by quirks of personality, but by the unavoidable consequences of perceiving reality at this depth. To live with one foot in the visible world and the other in the unseen brings paradoxes that are as heavy as they are illuminating. So if you've ever found yourself awake at 3 a.m., circling questions others dismiss as overthinking, know this: you are not broken. You are walking through existential paradoxes that mark the path of the deep intuitive. What follows are 8 such paradoxes, each revealing both the price and the privilege of being awake in a world that prefers to sleep. Existential paradox 1. Seeing humanity's potential while witnessing its failure. When you look at humanity, you see both its sickness and its possibility. Wars rage, though peace is possible. Millions starve, though the earth overflows with food. Cures exist, yet profit is placed above healing. The contradictions are everywhere. Abundance surrounds us, yet systems keep people fractured and competing. For you, potential is not abstract. It is obvious, tangible, painfully within reach. Watching it squandered is not just frustration, but existential grief, the mourning of futures that will never be born. Your mind, tuned to what Jung called the realm of becoming, perceives both the fracture and the wholeness, the illness and the potential for health. Yet you remain powerless, for you are like a doctor who diagnoses the disease of the collective with precision, but must watch the patient refuse treatment. The wisdom of this paradox is learning to hold that vision without drowning in despair. Your role is not to repair humanity by force, but to embody the wholeness you see, and to trust that example heals more deeply than words. Existential paradox 2. The mind that finds meaning everywhere and never finds rest. While others debate what to watch on Netflix, you find yourself contemplating the nature of consciousness. A casual chat at the grocery store becomes a meditation on human connection. A sunset stirs reflections on beauty, mortality, and meaning. You can't turn it off. Your mind is wired to search for significance, to see life as layered with symbols and mystery. Yet this awareness is exhausting, because you are surrounded by people content with the surface. They can enjoy a movie without tracing its archetypal themes, endure a bad day without questioning their purpose, admire beauty without asking what it signifies. Sometimes you envy them. Sometimes you wonder what it would feel like to live without the constant, but what does it mean? It is as if you wear psychological X-ray glasses that never come off. This relentless depth processing drains you, as though you are doing the inner work of 10 people, while the world barely notices. The wisdom of this paradox is realizing that your depth is not a curse to escape, but a responsibility to embrace. You are not meant to think less. You are meant to turn perception into wisdom, and to offer that wisdom to those who have not yet learned to ask the deeper questions. Existential paradox 3. Carrying responsibility without authority. You walk into a room and immediately sense the tension no one names. You see how a friend's old wounds poison their relationship, or how an organization hides dysfunction behind routine. Problems reveal themselves to you long before others notice, and that sight brings a strange burden. You feel responsible for what you did not create. This often looks like psychological responsibility without authority. You know what is wrong and often what must change, but you rarely have the power to act. You are like a passenger in a car rushing toward a cliff, shouting warnings that the driver cannot hear. When you do speak, others bristle. They call you negative, too intense, the messenger to be silenced. So you stay quiet, yet the knowledge burns inside you, and when events collapse as you foresaw, you feel guilty for not pushing harder. The truth is, people are not ready for truth until they are ready. The wisdom of this paradox is learning conscious detachment, caring deeply while holding lightly, offering insight without claiming responsibility for how it is received. Your role is to see clearly and speak when the moment is right, not to carry the weight of choices that were never yours to make. Existential Paradox 4. Surrounded by people, yet alone in what matters most. You can glimpse the deeper purpose of suffering while washing dishes or sense a truth about human behavior while standing in line at the bank. But who can you tell? Who would understand without thinking you're pretentious or complicated? This is the paradox of the deep intuitive, surrounded by people yet alone in your inner life. Your most profound realizations happen in solitude and often stay there. You learn to live a double life, outwardly pleasant and surface level, inwardly wrestling with questions too heavy to voice. As Jung wrote, loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. That truth defines the deep intuitive experience. And when you do test the waters with a careful observation, blank stares and quick subject changes teach you to retreat into silence. Over time, you begin to doubt yourself, wondering if your vision is valid or if you've simply made life too complicated. That doubt becomes its own layer of isolation. The reality is, most of your insights will remain private, but that doesn't mean you must remain alone. There are rare souls who can meet you in the depths, and this circle we are building is for them. If you feel the weight of this paradox, subscribe and join us, because you are not meant to carry your inner world in silence forever. Existential Paradox 5. Awake in a world that calls you crazy. At some point, every deep intuitive faces this paradox. You see patterns others miss, sense connections they can't feel, notice undercurrents they never detect, and you begin to wonder, am I out of touch with reality, or are they? Society enforces consensus reality, the agreed version of what matters, and your perception moves beyond it. When others seem satisfied with shallow answers, when they dismiss what feels obvious to you, doubt creeps in. The gaslighting is constant. You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. You're making it complicated. Depth is treated as dysfunction, sensitivity as weakness, insight as illusion. But Jung discovered the question itself carries the answer. Truly unwell minds do not question their sanity. Wrestling with it proves your health, not your madness. You are not seeing things that aren't there. You are seeing what most ignore. You're not crazy. You are awake in a culture that prefers to sleep. The wisdom of this paradox is to trust your perception without arrogance, to accept that you see more than most, but not everything. Existential Paradox 6. Certain you have a purpose, uncertain what it is. You feel it in your bones. That sense you're here for something important, something that matters. But when you try to define it, it slips away like smoke. This isn't grandiosity. It's the soul's awareness of destiny, pressing against the ego's need for clarity. Your intuition tunes you to what Jung saw as the psyche's teleology, its orientation toward future possibilities and wholeness. Yet purpose arrives not as a manual, but as a feeling, a knowing that you are meant to serve something greater than comfort or success. The suffering comes from knowing you have a calling without knowing what it is. You feel chosen yet lost, destined yet directionless. Fear of missing your true path makes you hesitate, analyze, and wait while life passes by. The truth is, purpose is not a destination but a direction. It reveals itself through action, not endless contemplation. The wisdom of this paradox is that your task is not to solve your entire destiny before you begin, but to follow the thread that calls you now and trust that clarity comes through movement. Existential Paradox 7. Holding both cynicism and hope without breaking. You see too much to be naively optimistic, the cycles of suffering, the resistance to growth. But you feel too much to become fully cynical. Your heart still breaks, your soul still believes. This tension is an existential paradox. How do you hold hope without becoming a fool, or stay realistic without becoming bitter? Cynicism feels safer. It spares you disappointment, but at the cost of numbness. Hope, on the other hand, demands courage. the willingness to stay open to beauty in an ugly world, to believe in possibility while surrounded by limitation. What is needed is not naive optimism, but what I call fierce hope. Hope tested by reality, refined by hardship, yet still alive. It sees the flaws of humanity and chooses to believe anyway, sees the brokenness of the world and works to heal it. The wisdom of this paradox is learning to expand your soul until it can hold both: despair and gratitude, grief and possibility, cynicism and hope. Existential paradox 8. Being fully human while touching the infinite. At times, your consciousness expands beyond the personal, touching collective knowledge, archetypal wisdom, and experiences that feel larger than yourself. This is both a gift and a paradox. How do you live with visions that transcend identity while still paying bills and keeping commitments? One temptation is to cling to the vastness. I am not this small self, I am infinite. But that can become a subtle escape from responsibility. The opposite is to dismiss the transpersonal as fantasy and cling only to the personal, cutting yourself off from your deepest source of meaning. Jung called the resolution the transcendent function, the ability to hold both. You are a finite individual with limits and a point of consciousness linked to something infinite. The wisdom of this paradox is to remain grounded while open, human while more than human, to live as a conscious bridge, able to translate transpersonal wisdom into healing for both self and world. The task is not to escape humanity, but to help it evolve. We have walked through the 8 existential paradoxes, and here is the truth that gives them meaning. They are not accidents, they are not flaws. They are the very shape of a rare mind awake in a sleeping world. Each paradox contains its own hidden gift. Grief conceals vision, exhaustion conceals wisdom, responsibility conceals detachment, loneliness conceals the search for true companions. Doubt confirms your sanity, uncertainty points you toward purpose, despair awakens fierce hope, and touching the infinite teaches you how to be more fully human. The paradoxes will never vanish, but they are not here to break you. They are here to shape you. So let me ask you, which paradox struck deepest in you? Comment below and share your truth, because your voice may be the signal someone else is waiting for. And if you're ready to carry these paradoxes not in silence but in fellowship, subscribe now and join this circle of rare minds. Souls who become deeper not despite their paradoxes, but because of them.